Okay, so this is of course the term that you all recognize. I will log in as an administrator here, and as you can see, I have a number of terms. I will now select all my sections so that I have a bit more information. And a number of things that I will do here. For instance, one to start with is to just validate the information. So, once you get new terms added into the system, they might be added into, for instance, this suggestion section that we have created. Well, depending on your workflows, you could do, for instance, say that the term suggestions, the new terms, they get a default status, and the ML is sent to as administrator. So an administrator would need to have a simple way to see all these new terms with a certain status and validate if they should be in the term base or not. So what we do in this case is that we have a filter, and let's say that this default status that we talk about is called the unprocessed. So I would like to see all the unprocessed English terms. I can now see that, for instance, we have a number of these terms that have the status. If I click here, process status unprocessed, which means they are new and no one have checked them. So what I would like to do is to just add them to the grid. I press this button here, this little box in the bottom of the list, and then I select Open Grid View. Now, as you can see here, I have a new window opening. This is the Grid View editor, and here are these terms which have the status to unprocessed. Now, as you can see here, I see a lot of information. I can see the section, the concept level fields at the beginning here, and then are the terms for each language. The English ones, English 1, English 2, if you have seen on it, and so on. I can also have set on display settings if I want to see more information, more fields, or more languages if we have one. So let's say I do a close here, and let's say that in this case I would like to say, okay, this should be okay. This is provisionally processed. This is okay, and so on. Please note here that once I've done a change, the row is now marked. It's blue. Blue means that it's saved as draft. So every change is auto-saved as a draft, which is pretty cool because I can just close the grid and then open it again later. If I'm not done with what I was doing, I can close it. It's auto-saved as a draft, and then later I can open the grid and I can continue with my edits. So when I'm ready, I just press save, and that is the time where the draft is done. I will show you also if I want to update more. Let's say that these two ones are also fine. I can just mark like this. I can also mark all if I want like that. So let's say that these are also okay. And now I say edit, and I want to do a change here on the level. English 1, process status, I want to set those two also at the same time to provisionally processed. You can see information that two were updated, and you can see now that even these ones, they have all the new statuses. Now, again, they are auto-saved as drafts. When I'm ready, and if I'm ready now, I can say save. Concept have been successfully saved. Okay, you can see also that those three ones have disappeared from my grid view. The reason is that now I have saved the drafts, and the drafts are closed because I have now, saved all the changes. This is the only one that is left because this I have not touched, and I can continue to edit it, or I can just say, nah, I don't want to do anything with that. I can remove it from the draft, or I can just clear the grid. And you can see now I have emptied all the grid, and I can just close it. Now, if I again do an update here, you can see that the others, they received the new status, and therefore they are not in this list. Only this one is left with the status unprocessed because it was the one that I didn't change. So you can imagine now that we can send in the same manner a list of terms. The administrator can easily just click and they say change the statuses, and then once they press save, all these workflows in the background are, will kicking and trigger a number of events. All these workflows, of course, it's up to you to decide and define. So a lot of things will be happening in the background automatically. Another case, as I said, is for instance to do a translation. And let's say that again I select all my sections here of the terminology. I have another filter that I created, Swedish term missing. So here I can see all the terms that are missing a Swedish translation. Again, because we can of course apply these filters into a specific user group. For instance, the Swedish translator, when they log in, they would see only these terms. We could, if we want, make so that they only see these terms that they are missing the Swedish translation. Again, the translator now, instead of clicking one by one, editing, adding the Swedish translation and so on, or doing an export and working in Excel or whatever, they can just go down here, press this button, adding the concepts into the grid view, open the grid view, and now you can see that these concepts or these terms are loaded in the grid. Now, another thing that we can do is, of course, I can also hide or show selected things. So, for instance, if I don't want to see the section information and I don't want to see, well, definition is good to see, but if I don't want to see it, I can just deselect it. So if I do apply here, you will see that in this case, the section disappeared and the definition I have here. Furthermore, I see the languages. I see the English one here and the synonym in English, and I see the Germans here, right? So as you can see, there are a lot of empty fields. But if we apply different views, the way that we do normally, create a view hiding a number of fields and then apply it to the user group, then we could also hide all these fields for this user. They would not need to see these terms here. So let's say that I'm want to translate here. What I would do is right-click and add the term in Swedish. And what happens is that if I scroll here, it has now created this Swedish term area, columns, as you can see here, and the specific fields. Now I haven't hidden anything, but as I said, views would be able to hide all these things. And then I could just add, the translations, for instance. It's easier when I would hide the fields because then I can say directly this would be beside each other, so to speak. So, for instance, this tiger, which we have here, we can go to the Swedish one here and say, I'm sorry, go to the Swedish one here and say tiger, which is the Swedish version. Now again, you see it's blue because I have changed this value, and then I can continue and press the other terms here. Just translate to Swedish, the English into Swedish. And once I'm ready, in the same way as we saw before, if I just close, I'm not ready, I just close it, and it will save all my changes. Once I'm done, I say, okay, this is fine. I will do a save. The concept was successful. I can also clear the grid if I want, so that I know what if I'm completely done. And then if I now go into no filter, because this tiger has a translation, now you can see that this is the Swedish translation that I created. And again, everything is traceable, so I see who did it and when it was done and all these things. This is something that you would miss if you just do it in Excel and then import it back on. So very useful even for translators, because then we could set that they only translate into Swedish, they only see the Swedish and for instance the English and the Swedish columns, and nothing else, and they cannot change any other language, because all the local languages and everything that we are used to having in TermWeb, everything is applicable as well in the grid view. So it's a very, very powerful component when for instance, translating into another language. We can do it now in TermWeb, save, and everything will be traceable. And again, in turn, it can trigger other workflows, such as, for instance, okay, someone has to validate the Swedish translation. And again, they would be working in the grid, and you just selecting the value, okay, these are okay, these are not okay, and so on. It's the admin did the validation in the beginning. Another useful thing that another useful functionality with the grid view is also, for instance, when we use it as a search and replace. Let's say that I have a number of terms here in suggestions box. All these are in the section of suggestions, and I would like to move them into another section. The way it was before the grid, I would have to either do it one by one, click, edit, and change the section, or do an export into Excel, edit and change the section information, and then import again and overwrite. The problem, of course, with the Excel export and import would be that we would not have all this history available of when it was done and by whom. And of course, the problem of doing it one by one is that it would take much more time. So again, the grid is very useful. I place them in the grid view. I open the grid, and then let's say, okay, this it also, of course, remembers all my settings. And before I said don't show section, it did. Now, as I said, show me the section information. I can see now that all these suggestions here, and I say simply mark this, edit the concept level field, as it is a concept level field, the section, and let's say you place it in a general, for instance. I do an update, and you see now that I have now updated the terms, and if I save, it will in turn save this information and actually move from one section to the next. So basically, we have done a search replace function in the grid. Other things that I can do is just search on specific keywords, let's say in the definition field, and then replace them or replace text and or other values for the specific results. So it's a very, very powerful search and replace function as well. Now, again, I can just clear. If I don't want to do these actions, I can clear and close. So there is nothing that will be destroyed, so to speak. And while we are doing all these changes, a very important thing is, of course, to also have a control on who is doing what, because now we will be able to change many things at the same time, and we need to have a better control of this. So what we have here is, let me move this little window of GoToMeeting. So what we have here is that, for instance, if you see the result here, and if I would like to edit it, this concept of this term, and I don't want anyone else to touch it while I'm doing it, so what we have added is this little key lock here. Basically, if I press the lock, now the concept is locked, and only I am allowed to do the changes. If anyone else tries to get in at the same time, they will get a message that this concept is locked. Please try again a bit later. And this is just simply so that I have full control that I am going to do these changes. I don't want anyone to sort of come back and or come and do it in the same time. In the older version of the 3.8 series before the grid view, it was okay because we had one concept at a time editing. So when you were there, it would automatically lock. But with the grid view, you have many concepts and terms that we are working at the same time, and then we need to do a more efficient locking. So we have the manual locking mechanism as shown in this case, but we also have a auto locking mechanism even in the grid. So the ones that are saved as drafts, the ones that are the terms that you are working on, they will be automatically locked when you're working there. So a much more advanced lock or mechanism, which allows us to have much more full control of the editing. Well, this is it.